All right, so my name's Davin Sunvik with The Catch today, and we're going to be going over my 7th big game tag in Nevada. So now I got to do these numbers on two hands now. I got to flash them up on the screen or something. But anyway, if you don't know why I'm making this video series, it's for two main reasons. The first one is if you're going to be getting advice from people on the internet, you want to make sure that their experience is somewhat similar to what you want to experience and that their resources aren't outrageously outlandish compared to what you would ever have, right? Some of these influencers, they're sponsored by big companies and they can simply hunt in places and go on so many more trips than you can, right? So I'm your average weekend warrior and I'm super successful. And so I want to make sure that I extend some of what I've learned over to you guys. So whether you're my friends, family, or people on the internet that are watching this publicly, I want to be able to document my journey and really show that you can be a successful big game hunter as a weekend warrior, and there's really no excuse for going home with a tag in your pocket. Now, obviously things happen, but in my opinion, like there's a lot that you can do in order to become a successful hunter. And so I believe that every story starts where the previous one left off. And so this story is going to be my second buck mule deer. And so I previously hunted buck with my dad, had a lot of struggles, and then that next year we didn't hunt mule deer. We only hunted horns longer, pronghorn, and we really were getting a lot of momentum as far as just understanding that it was more fun to hunt together than it was alone, and that while we will do some alone big game hunts, we wanted to maximize that time together as father and son. So what we did was we party tagged for unit 17, and we drew it as a party tag in 2017. Kind of funny. And so we get there the day before opening day, we drive around and we find this field where we're like, you know what, there's probably going to be some deer here in the morning, and so we'll come back. And so we end up crashing at a motel for the night, drinking some beers, talking to the locals and things like that. And we're not finding too much luck as far as that first day. But like I said, we had a plan for opening day. And sure enough, we were glassing on this hill, and we're using a combination of the mapping system to make sure that we're an appropriate distance away from this guy's field. That way, because sometimes you have the fence line, but their property line is actually different than the fence line. You want to make sure that you're respecting that as a public land hunter, right? Because we didn't know this particular farmer. And so you always want to respect people's land. And so we saw an area where mule deer were moving on and off of his land and bedding on the public land. And so we're like, okay, that's great. It's legal to shoot and all that kind of great stuff. So what we then did is we got down in there and we saw a big herd of deer, and we were like, great. So that, let's go put a stock on them, right? And so we had a party tag, so we had me go out and stock them first. And so I'm stalking this herd of mule deer, and I'm getting closer and closer and closer, and I see the buck that I want. He's a pretty decent one. He's not huge, but he's definitely like the herd buck, right? So he's a nice one. I'm getting closer. I'm hunting with my Mosin Nagant because I just gotten that gun sighted in, and I was just getting really confident with it. And so I wanted to make sure I started using that gun. I'm getting closer. And all of a sudden I spook like all the deer. And I'm like, oh, great, right? And so I ended up taking a shot at it while I was running, and that was just a bonehead move. I shouldn't have done that, but I missed by a mile. And so we ended up going and driving around where a lot of the locals had told us that there were some mule deer herds. So we're driving around in the hills, looking for things, looking for deer, and just finding absolutely zero luck. So we end up going back there the next morning, and I see a herd with a buck in it start kind of traveling to the south of the property. And at this point in time, I was actually positioned on the south side of the property, so it was kind of perfect. And my dad and I were texting back and forth, and there was a buck and he was kind of a little bit more west of the property. So we were in different areas of this field. And so what we had found was that that certain bucks were leading small groups of does in different directions off of this. So we were trying to kind of cover different ground. That way we're not hunting the exact same buck, kind of increasing our odds of getting success in a day. So anyway, this herd of mule deer ends up walking even further south than where I am, and they kind of start to feed and start to bed, and then they hop the fence. And I'm like, well, you know what? Like, it's kind of getting to those areas where we're pretty far away from this guy's private property, and this seems like a good stock. So I start stalking in closer and closer, and I'm just moving along the brush like super steady, just like I was the day before where I had spooked them. But this time was different. What I had learned is that if you're too quiet, you can actually stalk so close that you spook deer that you didn't originally see. So I was making sure I was looking through all the brush this time and really making sure that every step counted, right? That I wasn't going to accidentally walk past or walk towards a mule deer that I didn't know where they were at and then accidentally spooking them. So anyway, I get close. I can see he's not the biggest buck in the world, but I'm not a greedy guy, so I ended up taking him. He was like 1.5 years old maybe, so not super old, a little forky. And that was my first mule deer with my Mosin Nagant. And you'll find out in this series that I eventually pretty much use my Mosin for the vast majority of my hunts from here on out. And to this day, at the time of filming this video, I've shot more big game animals with my Mosin Nagant than any other rifle. But that was the first one, so that was really cool to shoot a deer with an old World War II battle rifle. So it's not the biggest deer. My dad walks out, he helps me drag it to the truck, and all of a sudden we see some mule deer starting to leave the field and head towards where our truck is parked. So we're like, great. So we get my dad into position, and now he's able to kind of put a stalk on his deer, and I'm guiding him. And at one point, like, he and the deer both make a noise, because I'm texting him to let him know about how far the deer are. They both make a noise, and they both turn their heads in opposite directions. They're literally looking away from each other, but they're not more than 15 yards. I mean, there's just tall brush in between them. Anyway, he eventually sees the deer. Deer sees him, and he shoots his deer. And then we recover his deer and get it to the truck. And so we're now butchering, processing 2 mule deer on public land near the truck now. And that was cool. We've never shot multiple big game animals in a day. So that was definitely like a first for us. So hopefully you understand that that finding success in mule deer country, whether you're in the middle of the mountains and there's not private land in sight, or you're hunting private, public boundaries, or you're hunting state line boundaries, or just different things like that, there are a variety of areas to hunt and find mule deer. They are literally everywhere. And there's a strategy that could work for everybody. So don't feel like just because this is what we did that that's what you have to do. You don't have to hunt private public boundaries. As a matter of fact, the closer you get to private land, the more you might want to consider using a shotgun slug instead of using a rifle bullet, just to be respectful of the fact that if that rifle bullet goes where you don't intend, or it goes a little bit beyond your reach, you're just practicing something that's so much safer by using that shotgun. So it's definitely something to consider, as far as the strategy goes. But yeah, and then if you see other people hunting public private boundaries, don't harass them or things like that, because typically what will happen is, while they're hunting, there are multiple herds that are going on and off that private land. And so while they're hunting one herd, they could spook another herd that could end up going towards you and end up working in your favor. And by the time we had pulled our deer out of there, there were other guys that had started hunting a very similar spot, and they had pulled out some deer with some success. So this is not something you have to worry about. You don't need to be scarcity minded with this. If you see somebody working an area, be patient. Don't harass them or do anything that's gonna ruin their odds of success, because all that's gonna do is ruin your odds of success. So anyway, I do appreciate you for watching. If you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up, and comment down below if I could give any other advice in my stories that could help you, because that feedback helps me help you, right? So again, I can't thank you enough for watching. Have a great day.